If you feel like you used to be a super confident rider and like were never afraid to ride or to get on anything or whatever, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself lacking confidence or feeling nervous to ride unexpectedly, this video is for you. I'm going to be debunking two of the most common myths about confidence and how to grow confidence that I see in the horse world. And I'm also going to be giving you some very real advice that I have seen work wonders in hundreds of students now, as well as in my own confidence journey with riding. And yeah, so let's jump in. So, if you're new here, I'm Ruby. I am a horse stewardship trainer and I specialize in relationship based horse training. And I help people just like you who are pleasure riders or adult AMIs to feel more connected and have a better bond with their horse by practicing relationship based horse training practices. And through a very holistic model. So if that sounds interesting, maybe consider subscribing because I have a lot of really interesting content that you might find helpful. And let's talk about confidence. So two of the biggest myths about confidence that I see, or biggest mistakes I see people making, and this I see from trainers, I see from pleasure riders, I see from parents, is that people think either if you're afraid to do something, especially with riding, like very commonly it's the canter, right? Like people are really nervous about cantering for some reason. Um, and or maybe like jumping or showing or whatever the thing may be, trailering, whatever. If you're feeling nervous, I see either the approach, which is kind of how I think a lot of us grew up riding, which is don't question your trainer, just go do it scared, get through it. That maybe sometimes works, but I think what that really actually does is it teaches people to not listen to their own instincts and to kind of like tone out your own protective fear response in your brain and your body, which I think is actually really dangerous. And I think that's why a lot of people get into wrecks because they stop being able to hear that little voice in their head that's saying you're in danger. Or if you do go do the scary thing and it turns out poorly, I think it just reaffirms for you that that is actually a dangerous thing and very scary. So I don't think that works. And then the the second thing that I see is people just think if they just only do things that they're really good at and they stay in their comfort zone, that eventually one day magically they're going to feel ready for the scary thing and they're just going to go do it and they're not even going to like think twice about it and suddenly they're just magically going to have the confidence. And that doesn't actually work either. So before we talk about how to actually grow your confidence, let's talk a little bit about how brains work. And the really great thing about this is this applies to both horse brains and human brains. And so this is both my approach to training horses that have confidence issues as well as my students that have confidence issues. And I try to use this approach on myself as well when I can, when I can get my own brain out of the way to actually remember to do it. And so basically, there's two main parts of our brain that have to do with confidence and fear. So one piece is the sort of subconscious fight or flight lizard brain. And this is the piece that is protecting us. So this is the piece that says you're in danger, you need to be afraid, this could be harmful in some way. And then the other piece is the logical thinking part of our brain where we can logically say, actually, no, people canter all the time, and most of the time it goes okay. And so the problem is that there's a constant conversation between these two parts of our brain when we're riding, and especially when we're trying something new. And the problem is when the lizard part and the like fight or flight part gets louder than the logical thinking part. And that's when we see issues arise in people's confidence. And so in order for us to override that sort of lizard brain, the reactive part, there's a couple of things we need to do. So before I get into that, I am just going to say really quickly, I want to like take a little detour to talk about my own confidence stuff because like I said, I've worked with so many students with this and I continue to work with students with this all the time, but I was never the rider that lacked confidence. I always was like, I'll get on anything. I was very brave. I was ready to ride any horse and young horse and a reactive horse didn't matter. I was very courageous as a rider. And it never even occurred to me that this could be dangerous until I had babies. And so I had my first baby and I was feeling a little bit nervous, but I thought wrongfully that, which is so silly because this isn't the approach I ever use with my students, but I thought for myself that if I just forced myself to get back out there, I would realize that I was okay and I would be fine. But the problem was that my body wasn't ready for that. And so I did force myself to get back out there, probably too soon. I wasn't strong enough. I lost my balance. I fell off. And that actually wrecked my confidence because it was almost like my brain affirmed to me that, oh, yeah, this actually is dangerous. And yeah, see, I told you we weren't ready and I told you this was dangerous. And so that was a lot harder for me to come back to than any fall I'd had previously. And then I had my second baby, and that was a much more challenging pregnancy and a much more challenging birth and recovery. I had a lot of medical issues related to that. And that's a story from another time. It was quite wild, but essentially coming back from that was even harder because now I had this idea that last time I came back too fast, and now I have even like more damage to my body. And so how am I going to recover from this? And how am I ever going to find the confidence to ride again? And that was when I finally was like, oh, wait, I do this with my students all the time and I know how to do this. And now I just need to apply it to myself. So the first most important thing is to regulate. So step one is to calm yourself down. I have a ton of resources about this, and I will link them below if you are interested in learning more about regulation. But essentially, the idea is to get your too loud voice of your lizard brain and your reactive brain to quiet down so that your logical mind can come back online and actually help you decide if this is really a dangerous situation or not. So step one, we're going to pick any regulation exercise you like. I'm going to share 3 with you really, really quickly here, but I have, again, more resources that I'll link that will go into this in more depth. So one is just to exhale longer than your inhale. So you're just going to either breathe in for 4 and out for 8, or if you're already kind of breathing fast because you're anxious or you're riding, you might breathe in for 2 and out for 4. As long as your exhale is longer than your inhale, this is going to tell your lizard brain that you're safe, and it's going to tell it to calm down and take a back seat so that your logical brain can come back online. Option 2 is just to think about your feet. And this feels so silly, but it's really super top secret. It's so easy to do without anybody even knowing about it. You're just going to notice the bottoms of your feet, feel your feet in the stirrups, notice if one foot feels different than the other, feel if you have a wrinkle in your socks, maybe your feet are itchy or sweaty or hot or cold or whatever, but just really feel it with as much detail as you can. And that's just going to zap you right back into your physical body. And again, put that lizard kind of what if of all the things that could go wrong in the backseat. And then the last one that I really like is I call it the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you're going to look for 5 things of a particular color. Pick a color that's not all around you, like maybe blue. Look for 5 blue things. Then you're going to look for 4 distinct things you can hear, 3 things you can feel. So maybe it's the feel of your reins in your hands, your stirrups under your feet, your horse's mane, something simple. Don't overthink this. It's not about being complicated. It's just really simple things. Then you're going to look for 2 things you can smell and then 1 thing you can taste. So you're just going to go through all 5 of your senses. You can do this really quickly, or you can really take your time with it, whatever feels right. But the idea is just to, again, get that yourself back into your body, back into the present moment, and tell your lizard brain to get out of the conversation. Stop kicking me, friend. She really wants my loves, but she's being kind of aggressive about it. Back up. Okay, there we go. A little more space, please. So then, once we have our lizard brain quiet and we have regulated, the next step is going to be to evaluate the situation. So now we're going to take a moment to actually think through with our logical brain that is now back in the conversation, am I actually in danger here? And if the answer is yes, get off your horse, truly. Like there's no prize for being tough and riding through scary things. Like, just get off your horse. It's okay. You're not going to teach your horse a bad habit. And if you do, guess what? There are trainers that can fix it. So get off your horse, keep yourself safe and your horse safe, and do whatever you need to do to get out of that situation. If, however, your logical brain says, no, this isn't dangerous, you're totally fine, you've done this before, your trainer told you it's fine, people canter all the time, whatever the thing is, then go ahead and do it and expect for things to go well. So then the third piece is to actually push yourself outside of your comfort zone a little bit. So the thing with confidence is that in order for your confidence to grow, you have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone ever so slightly. So just take 1 step outside of your comfort zone. And so, and it has to go well. So you have to be able to step outside your comfort zone into new territory and for it to actually be successful. So a lot of times where people have sneaky lack of confidence, where they're like, I didn't have a bad accident, nothing bad really happened, but suddenly I'm afraid of riding. It's because you've been in your comfort zone for too long and your comfort zone has quietly been shrinking without you even noticing. And so what you need to do is very carefully step outside of your comfort zone, make sure you have good experiences outside your comfort zone, and then retreat back into that comfort zone. So even even if it's just today I'm going to canter a few steps if I've been nervous about cantering, or I'm going to go to the show, but I'm actually not going to enter any classes. I'm just going to stable for the weekend and ride around the warm up. Take the first step that feels achievable, that pushes you a little bit, but you know is going to actually go well and create a positive experience, because that is where your comfort zone grows and that is where the confidence really happens. So if that was helpful, please consider subscribing. I have lots more resources like this that, again, I will link below, as well as some other videos that I'll link in here. And let me know in the comments what you're struggling with right now. What are you nervous about? Because I might be able to help. And until next time, make sure to hug your horse for me.